You're listening to SantaCruzVoice.com.
Good morning. Good morning and welcome to Bettina's Buzz here on SantaCruzVoice.com on another beautiful Saturday. It's March 23rd here, and I'm very happy to have on the line with me a very dynamic woman indeed, calling in from Bend, Oregon. I have with me this morning Andrea Stuart. Good morning.
Hi, Bettina. Thanks so much.
How are you doing this morning?
Fantastic. I'm just sitting here on my bed looking out over this gorgeous lava flow. We've got some storm clouds rolling in, but it's always beautiful here.
Just like it's always beautiful here. We've had some rain just last night, a lot of rain, and even driving in from Marina, I did go through some rain, but it's always an absolute beautiful drive. Well, again, everyone, as I was saying, I first met Andrea. I guess, Andrea, it was about, maybe 8-9 years ago when I first started being a contributing writer for 65 Degrees magazine. And I first got to know you through your red pen, that editing pen. Tell me, how long have you been an editor? Tell us.
I've been an editor since 2006.
How long have you been with 65 Degree magazine?
Since 2006. Yeah, I started out under 110 Media, and there were a couple of magazines. 65 Degrees had just started, and then editor-in-chief or editorial director Don Huntington brought me on as associate editor, and then when he moved on, I moved into his role with 65 Degrees. So I have been in this role for a really long time.
And you're really wonderful at that role, not only editing, but also being a writer, a wonderful writer. What's some of the things that you enjoy about working with the publication?
I mean, the community, right? Carmel and the Monterey Peninsula in general, it's always been a home for me because I had an aunt that lived in Davenport. So when Rich Medell, the publisher, said he was going to be starting this magazine down in Carmel, and he was moving there, I was really excited because that felt familiar to me. It felt organic, and then to get to know the community in a completely different way, from a different perspective, being able to work intimately with the people who make the community what it is, gave me a very different perspective in this way that it was like, oh, I'm really, as a kid, it was, more peripheral. And then as an editor and as a writer and being a part of a community who's trying to elevate the people and places, in that community, it's just been elucidating. It's kind of like digging deep. You get to dig deep the more you get to know people.
And when did you first start writing?
When I could read, when I was a year old. What I lack in math skills, I make up for in grammar.
Oh, those were good socks. I gave her one time for a present. I gave her some socks that say, "I'm checking your grammar."
You did, and I wear them all the time. They're year-round socks for me.
Well, one thing about you is you're extremely motivating in your style of editing, and you have a wonderful sense, Andrea, of bringing out the best, at least I feel as a writer, the best of your writer, and working with us to understand the story. Does that get frustrating sometimes?
As an editor, no, so my strength is in content editing, really. As I'm kind of a walking paradox, right? I'm an editor and a writer, and I have pretty heavy onset dyslexia. Come hell to high water, right? So I feel like when I'm editing, I'm reading between the lines, and I'm really reading what I think they're saying, and whatever technical prowess isn't there, whatever grammatical inconsistencies exist. I mean, that's what drafting is, right? Writing is all about rewriting, and really you just have to put it to bed, at some point. So when I'm working with a writer, like when I work with you, and if I'm getting a sense of a story, it's always fun. no matter how tedious little things can be. I mean, but that's what I have a copy editor for, right? Like, she's the one who deals with all the technical elements. That's her, Leah Weiss. She is a force to be reckoned with when it comes to the written word. She just, she's like an expert in Chicago Manual of Style, and she's done a lot of technical writing over her life.
Oh, yes.
Like, after that, and you know, Leah. So
Oh, yes.
I feel like what elevates me, I feel like my writing has come such a long way since I've been working with her as well. And so when you ask me, does it get frustrating being an editor? I think nothing's more frustrating than working on your own stuff, but telling someone else's story or working with another writer or editor on their project, that's easy peasy lemon squeezy. There's no emotional attachment there,
Yes, with those red slashes. And I love it how there have been times you've told me, don't be intimidated by the red lines. Just take them and use them. And I really have. And I feel, and thank you to both you and Leela, that you've really helped me grow as a writer. And I know that there's been times, as you expressed, that you help writers, you work to understand the story that they want to tell, because I remember in specific the story I was assigned to write about Tehama, and there was a certain angle I wanted to go with, and you helped me to bring out that angle with more clarity. So, and you help us writers stay true to our mission, I think, behind our words, to get the best words.
Oh, thank you. I appreciate that. It's tough because you have to kind of kill your darlings when you're writing a story. So, as cliche as that sounds, if you're writing a good story, or if you're covering a good story, you always have way more content than you can fit into whatever your editor has given you, whatever the publication can fit. So I feel like that's kind of the fun part, right? Is kind of getting your thoughts down on paper, sharing it with someone, and then from there, really fine-tuning it and, playing around, moving things around, extracting. And my writing process is not very organized. My writing process is probably just as esoteric as some of my thought patterns. So I feel like, you read books by other writers like Stephen King and people like that have a very routine regimen. And I tried for years to do that. It does not fit. It's like putting on a pair of shoes that are way too small and too confining, So I like to give writers the space, and I like to give them the permission to play with their writing and to experiment, to really just step into the story and forget about all the technical things, forget about where you think it's going. Start with what feels right. Writing from a visceral perspective, I think that lends itself to a story in a way that will connect with a reader and let them be a part of it. So they're not just reading the story. Maybe if you're lucky, they're kind of experiencing it and living it with you.
And that's one thing you did do for me in my earlier years of writing for 65. I come from more of a journalistic background of writing, and just as you were just now saying, you really helped to push me and to encourage me to again put the writer in the experience and make it more of an experience in the writing as opposed to more of the journalistic per se fact telling and that. So that was a wonderful addition that you gave me to add to my writing.
There are so many types of writing, right? We read different books and magazines. They all have a different purpose. I consider myself a storyteller. So I'm a writer, but I think I'm more enamored with the story behind something than I am anything else. Who, what, when, where, why, how, like a lot of us that went to school and learned all these technical things, whether it was journalism or English focus or in my case, business marketing, what I ended up getting my degree in. I feel like the story is really what motivates me. I have to give myself permission to just be present with somebody when I'm learning a story. And then I can go back later and dig into it and find nuances that maybe, because I was in the moment with the person, then I can dig through my notes and start doing it. But I think it all starts with learning the story yourself. Like when you talk about writing about Tehama and there were all these things you didn't know about that community. And you were like, there's so many moving parts. Where do I begin? I'm like, just sit with it, feel it out, just put the pen to paper and don't worry about where it goes to begin with. And that's pretty much how every story I tell goes. That's how they all start.
And at the heart of
I don't know what's going to happen here. It's going to be, it's kind of like a party in my computer. Right?
And at the heart of that story for me was that Clint Eastwood and Alan Williams, they're veterans, and the heart of preserving the land and being stewards of the land. But you helped me with that, as with many of my writings that you edited for me. And again, I thank you for that. But also in your publication background, you worked with Upstart Annapolis. Tell us about that.
Oh, yeah. Upstart Annapolis, that's kind of a heart project for me. I work with publisher Jimmy Davies. Other people might know him better as Jimmy Haha with Jimmy's Chicken Shack and the Jarflies.
That always makes me laugh. Sorry.
Every time I say those names. So yeah, Jimmy and I met on something completely unrelated. And then he said to me, he's like, I kind of like what we're doing here. I don't want to stop. Like, what do you think about, should we do a magazine? Like, I'm like, well, man, you run in this art community. Annapolis is so rich. I mean, it's like what Carmel is on the West Coast. Mm-hmm. Annapolis is on the East Coast. It's just dynamic, beautiful, vibrant. And the people are so earnest and they're hard workers and they're creative. And so I said to Jimmy, I mean, both of us are a bit masochistic. Why don't we just go for it? Because, running a magazine is so easy, right?
Right.
No. But I said, as long as you're taking care of the publishing end of it, I'll take care of editorial and let's just see what happens. And here we are celebrating. We're in our 10th year now. So it's so exciting. I'm going to be going back to Annapolis in December to celebrate during our 10-year anniversary party.
Oh, nice. Congratulations.
Yeah. And see all my Annapolis family out there. It's been a long while because of the pandemic. So we haven't been back east in a few years. So we're long overdue for this trip. It's a lot easier to get down to Carmel. That's like a 9-hour drive for me. 10 hours maybe. Oh, is my husband driving or am I driving?
Hello to Jeremy.
Right.
And that was really nice to finally meet you. I'd been writing for the publication for a few years and dealing with you quarterly or maybe once a year, depending on how many assignments I got, but working with you through, as I like to say, cyberspace, through the editing process. And that was really something I learned from you as well, and working with the publication, is working through cyberspace and all the technologies that can be used to create something, and you're not right next door to people.
It is so fun. I think the fact that we have access to each other in this virtual capacity, it really does open up our worlds. Now, to be completely transparent, I'm a very analog person. I kind of loathe my computer, and I'm not really.
You do? Really?
I mean, anything you ever see
that surprises me.
No. Anything you see on social media, that is just discipline and action. And my friend Renee has taught me how to really truncate and focus my social stuff so that I'm not spending all these hours fiddling. I mean, I'm very analog. I'm super old school. My library of books, I mean, they're all just books. I don't use a Kindle. I don't read anything on the screen for fun. I love the smell of paper. I walk into a bookstore and I get high. I actually get high.
I believe you. Mm-hmm.
It's like when my husband, who's a wine specialist, when he pops a bottle of wine, I instantly mouthwater. Well, something very similar kind of happens when I walk into a bookstore or a library. It's kind of sensual, So,
who's your favorite author? Who's your favorite author?
Oh gosh, I have a lot, but I love Richard Powers, Ann Patchett, Jodi Picoult. I have a whole slew of authors that just make me smile. The Overstory is one of my all-time favorite books. It's chewy. I mean, it's a big read, right? But I love going back to it because it's comforting. I'm a tree hugger in the most literal sense.
I can see that. When you say that, I can see it. I can see it.
I cannot go on a walk or a hike and not hug a dozen trees and talk to them. I've named most of the trees on my property, and I have 31 ponderosa pine trees. So that's a thing.
Wow.
They forgive me if I call them by the wrong name, though. So we're good. No, so I really relish in that analog experience. And so being able to connect with people digitally, though, and use digital stuff for good instead of evil, as I say.
Yes, like now, good.
Right.
Instead of evil.
Yes. And then it inspires me to, when I finally do get to see people in person, like traveling back east to see my art family, Upstart Annapolis, because in case I didn't say, that's an art and culture magazine. So very different from what I do with 65, which is a luxury lifestyle magazine. There's some crossover in topics, with community oriented articles and topics, but Upstart really does focus on the process of the artist and the experiences of the artist. And those stories get really juicy. You get to know people as these human beings and how they've curated these works, and not just art in its most literal sense, but also art in how you create communities. We interview, we've worked with people, in a city capacity. We've worked with, done stories on people who write and who teach, because there's artistry and there's creativity in pretty much everything we do. Humans are just creative species, right?
Yes.
So, yeah.
Yes. And one thing, too, I learned from you is everybody has a story. And how I learned that is, I remember one time I was just kind of having difficulty with a story. And I talked to you about it, and I said exactly that. I don't know. It's not going anywhere for me. We talked over the phone, and then you reminded me everybody has a story. And I really took that to heart. So I called the subject back. I said, let's meet. And it was a much better for that person as well as myself. It was, I think, a much better vibe, and it really helped me. So, yes.
Yeah.
Yes. So we're going to take a short break, and we'll be right back here on Bettina's Buzz.
Hello, I'm Carolyn. 25 years ago, my husband Rudy and I opened Charlie Hong Kong with the commitment to serve healthy food grown in healthy soil. Today, the healthy food we serve comes from the sacred land in Pajaro Valley, where Dick Peugeot and his Lakeside Organics grow the soil, and the soil grows the healthy plant that we serve to you. When you eat at Charlie Hong Kong, you eat healthy food, and it's delicious. Charlie Hong Kong, Santa Cruz.
Cannabis is one of nature's most beneficial plants. So at Treehouse, we use it to build community. Hello, I'm Jenna from Treehouse Dispensary in SoCal. In addition to the finest cannabis products, Treehouse dispenses information to those who want to know how to use cannabis for maximum benefit. Though we aren't medical professionals, we do know how cannabis science can help you. Listen to Xavier.
Thank you, Jenna. For those suffering joint pain, Treehouse suggests trying a CBD THC topical like the Balance Salve from local Santa Cruz company, Jade Nectar. Simply apply the salve where you feel the pain, then enjoy the relief.
To learn how to use cannabis for the best effect, just ask us, your friends and neighbors at Treehouse Dispensary, 3651 SoCal Drive in SoCal. You must be 21, but no appointment is necessary, and the information is free. And for those who already know what they want, Treehouse has an online ordering option at ourtreehouse.io and drive-through pickup. We look forward to welcoming you to our Treehouse community.
When you need help managing your estate, call on the Angel.
Hello, I am attorney Angel Hess, and I am ready to help. Whether you need a will or a trust, a guardianship or a conservatorship, or if you are managing the financial affairs of a loved one, I will help you. With over 7 years' experience working in estate planning and probate fields.
When you need help, call on the Angel, attorney Angel L. Hess at santacruzlegal.net.
You're listening to Bettina's Buzz here on SantaCruzVoice.com. And with me on the line, we have Andrea Stuart, writer, editor, businesswoman, and yoga instructor.
Hi, thanks. It's so happy to be here.
So tell us, Yogi, tell us about your life as a yoga instructor with Vitality Yoga.
Oh, well, Vitality Yoga was a happy accident. I've been practicing yoga since I was around 12. I think a lot of people, maybe as we get into those preteen years, hormones shift and everything. And I said, in my case, I developed a pretty debilitating panic disorder, which made it, really easy to identify with my peers, as you can imagine, walking into a building and going into a cold sweat and feeling like I'm going to pass out and being like, what's happening? So essentially, yoga came about because after, a year or so of going through all these medical tests, doctors trying to find out what's going on with me. They thought maybe I had a heart issue. They thought I had a thyroid issue. There were all these things. They were like, well, they threw up their hands and said, I don't know, maybe go put her on some meds or something. And my mom was like, no, she's not broken. Okay. Something's just off. And I'm a really sensitive person. I'm very in tune with my body. And so any little thing, I notice it, if my heart skips a quarter of a beat, if I have a slight different breath, if there's some tickle on my, I'm just sensitive. I'm built that way. So my mom, she did some research and she got me this entire library on holistic wellness. And this was in the 90s when it wasn't as much a conversation. Mm-hmm. It wasn't something doctors talked about at all. And so I had books on blood type and meditation, yoga, self-hypnosis, nutrition therapy, herbalism. And I dug in. I dove in head first, really. I ate it up. I began practicing meditation. So that was my first introduction to yoga, was meditation. It's a little out of order with the 8 limbs too. Like as we talk about it traditionally, meditation is down the list of it. It's like right before you get to samadhi, which is that that nirvana kind of experience. But for me, that was my first taste of it. And then I was fortunate that my high school had yoga as an offering. So I started taking asana, which are the physical postures and the physical part of yoga. And then from there, it just was kind of this thing that was how I live. And then when I was in my 20s, I started, I had a teacher that I loved, and she really encouraged me. She said, Andrea, I feel like you should do this teacher training. And I said, I'm already running, a magazine, and I'm doing this and that. I volunteer 20 hours a week. I don't think I can do this. And she goes, you know what? I'll give you a scholarship. I want you to do this. She was amazing. Sandy Carmelini. She was my teacher. And, she just had this beautiful way of relating yoga from a practical standpoint, from a functional standpoint, which is kind of what I was hungry for, because the esoteric nature of yoga didn't really resonate with me. All the philosophies that we talk about and the mythology behind it that I loved, for me, the stories were separate from the practice at that time in my life. I didn't feel the connection. So having a teacher that was able to connect the spokes and show me how the practicum of yoga could actually spill over into other areas of my life. It was mind-blowing, learning the anatomy and the physiology, the kinesiology behind yoga, and then also being able to apply those mythical and mystical principles. It became an art form for me. So becoming a teacher, it was like I took the teacher trainings and I studied with Sandy for 2 years. In teacher trainings. And then it just evolved where people were, like friends and family. Hey, I've seen that, this has helped a lot with your physical pain and injuries. I've seen that, you've talked about how yoga has helped you with your anxiety and depression. And helps a lot with obsessive. I have OCD. And let me tell you, girl, when I'm having a day, when I cannot leave my closet or like some weird tick is happening, I can just picture my yoga mat, and that'll like stave off some of those compulsory kind of behaviors. And so friends were asking me like, hey, maybe this, maybe you can help me with that. And before I knew it, I was teaching classes at people's studios. And then I started Vitality Yoga so that I could teach private sessions to people because there was a calling for it. And I wanted to also offer yoga to people, make it accessible in a way that resonated with me when I was a beginning student, right? We're always students, but in those early years, it really helped me that people had this, just very realistic and grounded approach to the practice. And so I'm a playful person, as you know, Bettina.
Well, I'm learning that more and more. And even speaking of that, when you bring that up on the website of Vitality Yoga, it says with a dash of playfulness.
Yes, yeah. I'm not good at keeping a straight face for too long. There's so much to be serious about in life. And so yoga, when I'm teaching yoga, when I'm practicing yoga, there's laughing and there's sometimes tears. There's a lot of curiosity. And I like to give people space to explore their experience because our bodies are all different and our minds are different. And
yes. And you have very small classes, only 10 students, correct?
Yeah, I've taught, big classes. I don't enjoy it as much because I can't be as present with each individual. And the classes that really made the biggest impact on me was with my teachers when there was maybe 10 of us in a room, sometimes 5, maybe 12, but in that's where you got one-on-one attention and you knew the teacher was able to see what was transpiring in your body for number 1, safety, right? And then number 2, so that they could help you to explore that posture, those asanas in your own way, in your capacity, in your bones, because we're all built differently. So, maybe you want to do a headstand, maybe you want to do Hanumanasana, the splits, but maybe you're not built for it because the spacing in your joints and the way that your ligaments and tendons are connected do not allow for that interpretation of the pose. That's okay. That's why we use props. I am huge into yoga props. I have my bolsters and my blocks. I have my straps and my yoga rope walls. I think it's all about playing. I like to explore, and that's what I like to encourage people. That's where Vitality Yoga came from, was this really, this calling, this need to hold space for people and to give them the space to explore yoga and their own experiences without judgment and without expectation.
Well, that's some of the nice commentary and comments that have been made by students who have taken yoga from you, are those very things that you are saying. And I would encourage anyone to take yoga or instruction from you, because even over the phone years ago, we were talking one time, going over a story, and I was mentioning to you that I had going through massive pain, and it was sciatica, I believed, and you referred me to go to yoga, to try out yoga. So I stumbled into Sweet Heat Hot Yoga in Monterey, and there's so many types of yoga practices, but there they do the Bikram yoga, which I like the heat. We were talking about that, but talk about the type of yoga and the instruction that you offer.
Yeah, I'm trained in Hatha, but my teacher was heavily influenced by Iyengar, and she became an Iyengar teacher, Sandy. So a lot of my teaching comes from that anatomical space, but with creativity. I love interpreting poses in different ways and different iterations. And so another one of my teachers, Tiffany Cruikshank, she's an anatomy guru. I mean, she has just got this, she's very science-based, but also she's very compassionate. And so a lot of that is influenced in how I'm teaching, where I like to pay attention to how a student is moving based on what I'm seeing and encourage that mindful approach. So it's not about what the pose looks like. It's what it feels like in your body. And it should be nourishing. It doesn't mean it won't be challenging, right? It doesn't mean that you're not going to have to breathe through some challenges. I think you and I talked a little bit, Bettina, about how I broke my ankle a year and a half ago, right?
Yes.
That was humbling. It's such a small part of the body, right? You're like, it's an ankle. It's way down there. But in my experience, the bone healed quickly. But here I am a year and a half later, and those tissues are still very angry. And I am still in physical therapy, and yoga is a big part of that. I'm still having this massage every day. But yoga has really been that influence that has taught me, hey, every day is different. Our bodies are in a different place every minute, every hour.
Yes.
And to be able to hold space for myself and to be able to give myself permission that, okay, maybe today I'm doing balancing poses and I'm in dancer's pose and maybe I've got a handstand in me. But tomorrow, for some reason, I can't even touch my toes. My back is hurting and my ankle is swollen. And so yoga has a way of taking that humility and turning it into something to be grateful for. It's like, oh, I still have an ankle though, right? Like it's still on my body and
your sense of appreciation for yourself grows just when you work to achieve the different poses in the practice.
Yeah. And I guess for me, like it's less about achievement, right? Even in my own recovery, it's been about being present and actually paying attention to what my body is saying to me. And I guess you can say that's the underscore of everything in how I teach yoga too, is asking students to just be present and to look at, listen to, feel whatever it is they're feeling. None of it's wrong, ever. If it's frustration, if it's joy, if it's glee, if it's anger, if it's sadness, it doesn't really matter. Those feelings were already there. Yoga has this magical power to bring to the surface whatever we're processing. And so when we're working through mental health crises or physical illness or physical injury, yoga can help us to tap in at those deep, deep cellular levels almost and really acknowledge what we're experiencing. And the funny thing happens, as soon as we acknowledge that something is there, even if we can't name it, even if we don't know where it came from, just acknowledging it gives the body permission to let go of it.
Yes,
and
that's true.
There's just tremendous power in that.
And the tremendous power in breathing. I think more than ever I've learned that in yoga is the power of our breath and breathing properly for ourselves and good posture. I'm sitting up here in the studio.
Posture is everything, right?
Yes.
The breath work, pranayama, that is the fourth limb of yoga. And so it's, really, you do the physical practice basically to kind of tone the body and kind of, I like to look at the asana practice as a way to exhaust the body and to free the mind. Because when we're focusing on the physical movements, we can't be as in our head. We have to be present to make sure that we're really doing things, not injuring ourselves and learning. And then we can sit down and then we can start to breathe. Because now we're not holding on to as much tension. Maybe our minds are a little freer, so we can follow the breath. We can be with the breath and really make it intentional. And then from there, right, as we work through, maybe then we can go inward. Maybe then we can concentrate a little bit better. And then we can get into that meditative state where we're just kind of present with whatever. And that's really, in a traditional practice, that's kind of what we're doing. But the beauty, like you're saying, yoga doesn't have to go in any one order. I started with meditation when I was 12, right? That's not the order that, maybe some of my teachers or some of my gurus, in India were taught, right? But that's how my journey began. And on any given day, maybe my practice is a lot of breath work, and that's all I'm doing that day. Like when I broke my ankle, I couldn't get on the yoga mat. I couldn't even move. I was basically on bed rest for the better part of 2 months. You can imagine what that did to my body and how that influenced my mental health. And my mom was sick at the time, so it was just a lot to carry. So breath work was my practice. That was my yoga practice. That kept me from spiraling into a deep depression. It kept me in this state of being able to be present. Now, I was still a little wackadoodle, right? Like,
You're so funny.
My mom unfortunately was in hospice, and there was a lot going on. So my mom, that was definitely wackadoodle.
Yes, you did go through a lot. I remember that we were talking, and you've been doing beautifully through it all. Yes.
Thank you. It's a journey, right? But yoga, if it wasn't for yoga, man, I don't know. I can't even fathom what today would look like if I didn't have my practice that I could turn to. And those teachers, being able to tune in and show up at class, even though all I'm doing is sitting there. And so I just feel very grateful to be able to not only have that in my pocket, but to be able to be in a place where I can share those tools with other people and in a community capacity so that it's accessible. I have some clients that they pay me in eggs, and I love it.
That's wonderful.
I get farm fresh eggs, and they get Reiki and yoga classes, and that to me is the community I want to build.
That is community.
Yes, we have to support ourselves to some capacity, but I can't imagine. I want to create a space. I have a space where nobody gets turned away, because it's been such a game changer for me. I mean, when I was 12 years old, I don't know where I would be today, Bettina. I don't know what life would look like if that gift had not been given to me. And then the generosity of my teachers and the students that have been teaching me and continue to teach me every time I teach a class. Yes,
that's wonderful. We're gonna take a quick break, and we'll be right back on Bettina's Buzz with Andrea Stuart.
For ag and industrial real estate, call Chuck Allen. Chuck Allen is a lifelong resident of the Pajaro Valley, a friend of everybody, and has closed so many real estate transactions, the Wall Street Journal and Keller Williams both list him as one of the nation's top producers. So for ag and industrial real estate, call the top realtor, Chuck Allen, at chuckallenproperties.com. chuckallenproperties.com.
Do you have a car sitting around you want to get rid of? Donate your car and help veterans and their families. Yes, one fast call to the Veteran Car Donation Program and we'll come and remove your car for free. You can donate most cars, trucks, or SUVs in most conditions. The proceeds raised goes to help active military, veterans, and their families. And you get a tax deduction. Operators are standing by. Here's the number.
800-640-9509. Again, that's 800-640-9509.
When your business is on the move, you must find the right place for it to move. Let's ask Matt Shelton, General Manager of J.R. Parrish, the big question. What is the right place to move one's business?
Location, location, location. Sometimes it's rent. Sometimes it's the fact that there aren't that many buildings available to suit you, but mostly it's location of your customers, location of the principals, location of your employees.
Move it to the right place with the help of the power brokers at J.R. Parrish in Santa Cruz.
Time to eat. Chef Ben here from the Back Nine Grill and Bar, with the easiest place to get to in Santa Cruz County, right off the Pasatiempo exit. Inviting you to join us Monday through Thursday for our nightly specials, like Meatloaf Monday or Taco Tuesday, Made in-house Cordon Bleu Wednesday, burger and a beer special Thursday nights, and happy hour all week long with your favorite libations and great appetizers. The Back Nine is the restaurant for every occasion. Looking forward to seeing you at the Nine.
You're listening to Bettina's Buzz here on SantaCruzVoice.com, and with me on the line is Andrea Stuart. Andrea, tell us a little bit about your childhood.
Oh, well, I mean, we talked about how I started yoga when I was 12, right? But a big precursor to the anxiety disorder that, started showing up in me came from, when I got to be about 12 or 13 years old, I lived in a very culturally diverse area. I lived in in Hayward and had family in Oakland and Santa Cruz. And so I was used to this diversity. But as I got to be like 12 or 13, there was a shift happening in what I viewed as society, right? People that I was friends with since we were little girls and little boys suddenly started shifting, and I was getting bullied a lot. And my mom, she was a free spirit. She was a very loud hippie, right? So I grew up in a household.
I'm sorry you were bullied, by the way. Bullying is not fun.
And I think that anytime, unfortunately, I think most of us experience bullying at some point. I don't think anyone gets out of life unscathed in that way. In my situation, I think I was very free-spirited, and I've been very independent-minded since I was a little girl. Like I said, I grew up in a household where nothing was taboo. Mom was like an open book. She said, here's my experiences. Do this, don't do that, FYI, And so I didn't have a lot of these, ceilings on conversation and expectations. Mom told me I could do whatever I wanted, be whatever I wanted when I grew up. She was just like my biggest cheerleader. And when I turned about 12 or 13 and I was starting to get bullied by the very people who I once considered my closest friends, I didn't understand at the time that there was socially, culturally happening like racial disparity. I didn't know that the fact that I was white and they were Black, that was now happening. And it wasn't until, Bettina, that, as I'm, in the corner and there's a knife in my throat and I'm looking into the eyes of this young woman who I loved so much, and I didn't understand her anger. And then finding out like her uncle had been arrested for something that I probably would never in a million years get arrested for, honestly, being in the wrong place at the wrong time. And then I'm learning, all these other friends of mine are having these very similar experiences, and they're now at an age to understand that there is a disparity happening in our cultures. And I didn't know. I just didn't know. And so we ended up moving to Danville. Oh my God. So I go from one extreme to another, and I had a whole other culture to get used to. It was very monochromatic, though, from my perspective. It was a very Beverly Hills-ish kind of experience for me. And I'm like the poor kid in class, right? Like my parents were just happy to be able to afford a condo. And we had this, old Mustang too, with peeling vinyl top and rack and
Mustang
steering never worked properly. So every time we turned the wheels, And so then I was on the receiving end of bullying for a completely different, reason, being different in a different way. And I think I was 15, Bettina. I am a very big Tori Amos fan. I love her work. She is such a dynamic and quirky musician. And I think I was
you.
I am very quirky. I am. So I was listening to the radio. I'm an anchovy. And where I got that from was Tori was doing an interview, and when they asked her to kind of describe her music and what she thinks about why some people like it and some don't, she said, well, I'm anchovies, and not everybody likes those hairy little suckers, And I just immediately went, oh my God, that's what it is. I'm an anchovy. It's okay. And so, getting to that point and like understanding that I was just different, and we're all different. Now I know this, right? But, trying to fit in was probably the worst thing I tried to do.
It's self-acceptance. We have to learn that's the key. We have to accept ourselves, and then magically things start going better.
Yes, exactly. And so I feel like that was the turning point for me. And when the bullying started to subside was when I really just started, befriending people who were interesting and who I could learn from and who seemed to find me interesting and who could maybe learn from me. And finding that social dynamic, finding all the other anchovies in the ocean, right? Like that was what really started making me feel more comfortable inside of myself and with myself. And I think that, I've always been artistic and creative. So I think I told you once upon a time that I used to be in dance and I used to be in drama.
Yes. And sports
singing.
too. Sports as well.
I played volleyball.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. But sports a little less so because I'm not competitive. I'm kind of like my husband, Jeremy, he's very competitive, right? And he used to play soccer and like, he's always continuing his wine education, and he's like competing with himself. If there's nobody else to compete with, he has these,
because he can't compete with you.
Yes. He loves puzzles and stuff. And then there's me where I'm like, so I don't know. Like we're playing Frisbee in the yard and he's like, come on, you can catch it. I'm like, I'm not going to dive for it. Yeah, that sounds painful.
If you throw it to me, I might catch it.
Yeah. I can catch if you throw it to me. Yeah. So I think that's kind of like that creative nature in me is attracted to that in life and in other people. And so for me, I just really enjoy applying that in any way. Does that make sense? Just creativity at its finest.
Creativity. And it's also great that your experiences, as like you said, and I often say to my daughter, I don't know that anybody ever didn't get bullied. Obviously not to the degree that people can be bullied these days, but it seems that those experiences have made you much stronger.
I think what came with time was understanding that whatever traumas I experienced at the hand of another person, it was never about me. And that doesn't excuse the behaviors, right? It never gives us license to hurt another person intentionally. But I find that when I look back on those experiences, I don't have any anger about any of the people who I thought hurt me. Even my friend, who held me at knife point, like I actually have a lot of compassion for what she was going through. I didn't know at the time she was being abused by her dad. And I think one of her uncles got arrested, and there was so much going on that I feel like, we can really do each other a favor when we feel something really strong, if we can just sit with it and breathe for a moment and understand that everybody, like you said earlier, has a story, and we don't know what that story is. We don't know what's hidden in the subtext of their life. And so if we can hold a little bit of space for when that person cuts us off in traffic, or they flip us off, or they don't hold the door open, or they give us a nasty look, if we can just kind of sit there and say, hey, I don't know what they're going through right now. I'm not going to retaliate. Instead, I'm just going to hold some, for lack of a better word, spiritual space for this person. And I'm still going to hold the door open for the next person, even though I'm a little bit ticked off because that was rude. I'm still going to pass on the good stuff, and I'm not going to pass on my anger or my frustration. Like my favorite thing to do when somebody cuts me off in traffic is I smile and I go, oh my God, you turkey. And it's so cheesy, but it gets me out of that ragey place that could very easily spiral.
Escalate to something not friendly at all.
Not friendly. Yeah.
Yeah. We try to keep that positive attitude, especially too around here. It's so beautiful and we're such a tourist community. So we have license plates from all over, and yes, and it's a nice reminder to look at the speed limit signs if you're visiting. Don't be afraid.
I know.
Don't be afraid to drive the speed limit.
It's so true. We get that a lot here in Bend. I think that I did want to say that one of the things I enjoy about writing is that when I got to a place where the anxiety of performing got to be too much, writing became my creative outlet. It became my form. And it started with poetry. And Maya Angelou, my mom got me some beautiful books by Maya Angelou. And I remember reading a quote that I still live by today. And it was, I can be changed Sorry, I'm just choking a little bit on my own saliva. I can be changed by what happens to me. I refuse to be reduced by it. And that was, I printed that up on my printer when I was like 15 or 14 years old. And I had that on my wall. And I still turn to that quote over and over again. And it's like every time I interview someone or every time I meet someone, I get to experience somebody else's life and step into their shoes for a minute. I remember it was Gavin Newsom when he was just about to be lieutenant governor. When I interviewed him, we talked at length about his struggle with dyslexia and the ways and the tools that he's employed to be able to read and study, and because he loves edification, like he's like a lifelong student, and I can relate to that. But it was like, that gave me permission. I was like, oh, I'm dyslexic. And I always thought that like, maybe I shouldn't be a writer and an editor because it's breaking the rules, you know? And then coming out of that interview, I was like, oh, wait, Andrea, remember the anchovy thing? You're an anchovy. It's okay. Like, you have your own way and your own tools, and you've made it your own. And I had a teacher in 9th grade, and I don't know if I told you this. I turned in a poetry project, and we had to have a dissertation kind of thing attached to it. And she looked at me when I asked her, why did I get a bad grade? I got a bad grade on it. And in English, I was like, oh my God, I'm already bad at math. What's happening? I can't be bad at English too. And she says to me, Andrea, it's not your fault. You're just not good at writing. Find something else to do. Find something else to do.
Andrea, find something else to do. What a statement.
I think about her every time I see my name in the masthead. I go, well, eat your heart out, honey.
Andrea,
I did it anyway.
Well, in our 2 minutes left, please remind everybody how they can find you, your social media. They can look up Vitality Yoga and see you there with your fiery red hair and your wonderful face and your face. But yes, you have a wonderful face. And thank you so much for joining me on Bettina's Buzz this morning. It's been wonderful having you here. You're a wonderful inspiration in so many ways. And I'm sitting up straight. Thank you again for encouraging me to do yoga. I do all kinds. I don't always make it to class. Now I try the chair yoga. I'm just there as long as I'm moving, right? As long as you're moving and having good posture. So
move your body. That's all. Move your body and breathe with intention. If those are the only two things every human on the planet ever did, man, this world could shine bright.
And we are shining bright. And we're going to remind everybody to pray for peace. That's always a good thing. Pray for peace. And I want to give a special shout out to the Seaside High Track and Field team. They're at the Avis Kelly Invitational Track Meet. That's at Gilroy High School today. It's the 51st annual meet, and that's going on. So good luck to Seaside Spartans. Go Spartans. And to Coach Cerna and to Coach Dominguez, thank you for all your hard work. And Andrea, we've got a minute. Anything else you want to add?
Oh, I just want to thank you so much for having me. I'm not used to being on this side of the interview, young lady.
And that's what I like, bringing people who aren't used to being on your side or being the subject to shine a light on you. Because everybody's got a story. You've really got some interesting stories.
Oh, well, interesting is a fun way to put it. No, I just really appreciate it. And I'm on, you can find Vitality Yoga on Instagram at Yogi Drea. You can find me on Facebook at facebook.com/Vitality Yoga. And of course, vitalityyoga.us is my website. And, I host yoga retreats, Reiki retreats, and do workshops. And so I love interacting. So,
and you'll be on,
be on again in the future.
Yay.